السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. الحمد لله وحده والصلاة والسلام على من لا نبي بعده. The topic of this discussion is Maulana Saad's 10 actions which have caused the current disunity in Tablig Jamat. This discussion has been compiled in April 2019 by Muftis and Ulama who went out for 1 year in Jamaat, alhamdulillah. Inshallah, in this discussion we will share some of the reasons why the current division has happened in the Tabligh Jamaat. It is comprehensive and hence it needs to be heard by all those who are wondering why the split happened in the Tabligh Jamaat. If you go out in Jamaat, then you need to hear this full audio, inshallah. We were forced to use the words which we have used because Maulana Saad, who has never spent 40 days, 4 months, or 1 year out in Jamaat, not even 1 day, according to someone who was very close to him, is the main person responsible for this current divide. Our sincere Jazakallah khairan to our elders from the time of Maulana Yusuf, who were patient with Maulana Saad for 20 years and tried their best for 20 years to rectify the problems. Darul Uloom Deoband has been patient with Maulana Saad as well, because over the past 20 years, they have received more than 10,000 questions about Maulana Saad's statements, and they didn't issue any fatwa till a few years ago. We put the word Maulana in quotation marks before Maulana Saad's name because during his student days, Maulana Saad would miss more than 3 months of studies every year for many years. And even when he used to teach for many years, every year he would not teach students for many months. Hence, we are forced to add the quotation marks, the scare quotes with the word Maulana before his name. Even though this disunity has happened in Tabligh, we as workers of Tabligh should make even more sacrifices now. This amazing beneficial work has benefited us so much, which we can never describe in words. Maulana Ilyas would say that the following statement of Prophet Muhammad ﷺ is sufficient to keep us involved with Tabligh for the rest of our lives. That the Prophet ﷺ says in Sahih Muslim, hadith number 1893, that whoever guides towards the good deed will be rewarded similar to the person who does the good deed. This work now requires from us to increase our sacrifices even more of self, time and money for the sake of Allah. The following are the 10 main actions of Maulana Saad which have caused great distress to millions of people and organizations worldwide. First in brief, and then the 10 in detail. Number 1, Shura. Number 2, method, Nahj. Number 3, criticism. Number 4, Fatwas. Number 5, Ameer Claim. Number 6, violence. Number 7, Tabaqaat effort. Number 8, Fazail versus Muntakhab. Number 9, new things. Number 10, Revengeful. Now in detail, one by one. Number 1, Shura. Small as well as large organizations are run by a Shura. Maulana Saad is not ready to accept any Shura. Maulana Saad wants to run Tabligh on his own, like a king, like a dictator. How can a huge multifaceted international effort like the Tabligh effort be left on the decisions of one person, and especially someone like Maulana Saad who doesn't have any practical field experience? He has not even spent once 40 days or 4 months or 1 year in Jamaat. Someone who spent many years with him said that Maulana Saad has not spent even 1 day out in Jamaat. Maulana Saad talks about prophets and Sahaba radiallahu anhum going out in the path of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and that Sahaba of every profession went out in the path of Allah. The question is that if they all went out, then why doesn't Maulana Saad go out in Jamaat? Why hasn't Maulana Saad spent time in Jamaat? If he can go to far off countries for ijtimas, then he should be going out in Jamaat on a regular basis. But he doesn't want to go out in Jamaat like the rest of us, and he only wants to deliver lectures and tell us incorrectly what to do. Prophet Muhammad ﷺ did things himself, and he did it more than others. To motivate himself to go out in Jamaat, Maulana Saad should read the story of Amr bin Jamuh radiallahu anhu, who went out in the path of Allah when he was handicapped and in old age. Even today, many people go out in Jamaat who are in their 70s. A brother who's in his 70s has been going for 4 months every year for 25 years, alhamdulillah. If such people can go in Jamaat, then why doesn't Maulana Saad go out in Jamaat? Tabligh is a collective effort of the Ummah and is not owned by any individual or a family, and that is why the Aalami International Shura was formed. It was the Aalami Shura which chose Maulana Saad in 1995 to be one of the 3 Faisals for India. The following year in 1996, it was the Aalami Shura which also added Maulana Umar Palanpuri and Miyaji Mihrab for a total of 5 Faisals for India. The 5 for India were from the 10 which were originally chosen by Maulana In'amul Hasan for the International Shura. 20 years later, it was the Aalami Shura in 2015 which added 11 new members for the world and 4 new Faisals for Nizamuddin and India. Maulana Saad agreed with the Aalami Shura decisions in 1995 and 1996, but he rejected the decision of the Faisal of the Amir, Haji Abdul Wahab, and the Aalami Shura decision in 2015. Maulana Saad wants to be the only Amir, so we should be very concerned with someone who has so much love to be the Amir of Tabligh. We are made Amirs and we shouldn't have any desire to be an Amir. He disagreed with the decision of Haji Abdul Wahab in 2015, and it is his right to disagree. But then he also rejected the decision of the Faisal, the Amir, which he has no right to do. He can disagree with a decision, but he can't reject and he can't refuse to accept the decision of the Amir. He has gone against Mashura of the Aalami Shura, which is the same Aalami Shura concept which made him one of the 3 Faisals in India in 1995 and one of the 5 Faisals in 1996. So why should we take Maulana Saad as our Amir when he has constantly refused to accept the decisions of the Amir? On the last page of the book by Maulana Abul Hasan Nadwi rahmatullah alayhi, titled Makatib Maulana Shah Muhammad Ilyas, is a letter by Maulana Ilyas rahmatullah alayhi to Qari Tayyib, expressing his desire to have a group, a shura, which would run the effort of Tabligh. International mashwaras were conducted by Maulana Yusuf on 3 occasions, at Hajj, in Raiwan, and in Tongi at these ijtimas. He would not make major decisions till responsible old workers from the 3 countries were there. Even day-to-day issues, Maulana Yusuf would make decisions only after making mashwara with Maulana In'amul Hasan, Maulana Umar Palanpuri, Maulana Ubaidullah and others. Then Maulana In'amul Hasan would make mashwara regularly to make even routine decisions. If someone asked Maulana In'am permission to go home, he would say that put in mashwara tomorrow morning and we will decide in mashwara. Once Maulana In'am said in the presence of workers from many countries that the effort demands that a group of people be formed that takes the effort forward. When the mashwara group is formed, remove the Amir title because the person is a khadim and a servant of others. An international Aalami Shura was formed in 1993 by Maulana In'amul Hasan, consisting of 10 people. These 10 Shura members were specifically consulted by Maulana In'amul Hasan for the last 2 years of his life. Once Maulana Saeed Ahmad Khan asked Maulana In'amul Hasan that if you are not alive, who will make the final decision and who will be the Faisal? Maulana In'amul Hasan said, you Shura people should choose one from among you to be the Faisal. Then Maulana In'amul Hasan passed away in 1995. So from 1995 till 2015, this Shura of 10 old workers were running the effort of Tabligh for 20 years. When this group of 10 would gather every year in the 3 above mentioned places, they would make mashwara and make the major decisions for all of Tabligh. So when the 10 would meet, usually Mufti Zainul Abidin or Haji Abdul Wahab and a few others would be the Faisal. In these 20 years from 1995 till 2015, Maulana Saad was never the Faisal even once. because there was an international shura in place and Maulana Saad was not the Amir of Tabligh. One by one, everyone passed away from the 10 shura members, and in 2015 from that 10, only 2 people were left, Haji Abdul Wahab and Maulana Saad. So in 2015, the old workers of the world decided that since only 2 are left from the original 10, now new members need to be added to complete the 10. So for many days, discussions took place in Raiwan, Pakistan, and finally a shura was made in 2015 consisting of 11 new members. This 2015 mashura took many days because Maulana Saad kept on stalling and delaying things. Haji Abdul Wahab was the Faisal and the Amir, and the Faisal decided the names, but Maulana Saad went against the Amir and against the decision of the Faisal. After more than 10 days, that letter with the names of the International Shura, the Aalami Shura for Tabligh, was sent to all the Aalami Shura members. The members, including Haji Abdul Wahab, signed the letter, but Maulana Saad refused to sign. It wasn't a matter of coming up with some names and showing them to Maulana Saad. No. The discussions took many days, and finally the decision was made by Haji Abdul Wahab. Maulana Saad wanted his son's name to be in the Aalami Shura, even though his son was still in his early 20s and was too young and didn't have experience. As can be seen, Maulana Saad is trying his best to add his son to the Aalami Shura. Maulana Ibrahim Dawla reminded Maulana Zubair and Maulana Saad many times during those 20 years that since people have passed away, the Aalami Shura needs to be completed. But since Maulana Saad had other nefarious plans, Maulana Saad did not obey his teacher Maulana Ibrahim Dawla, even though Maulana Zubair had agreed to add new Shura members to complete the 10. From 2015 till now, Maulana Saad wrongly believes that he is the sole Amir of Tabligh, and he strongly believes that there is no need for a Shura, and we all have to obey him, otherwise those who don't obey him will go to Jahannam, because he feels he is an Amir of all of the Muslims of the world. No one made him the lone sole Amir of Tabligh, let alone the Amir of all Muslims. He is unfortunately a self-proclaimed Amir who wants to run the Tabligh effort like personal property. Once Maulana Saad said in Raiwan that if you put too much pressure on me, I will go to Banglawali Masjid Nizamuddin and lock all the doors and shut down the masjid. He has forcefully taken over the Tabligh effort without being appointed by anyone to be the Amir of all of Tabligh. Maulana Saad, because of his stubbornness, has single-handedly split the Tabligh Jamat and has caused so much disunity. The work of Tabligh has been negatively impacted, and unfortunately, so many people have been involved in sins because of his refusal to accept the decision of the Shura. The Aalami Shura and the elders are ready to unite with him as soon as Maulana Saad accepts the Shura, which was completed in 2015. Maulana Saad, with his Shakhsi Nizam, the individual ruler, the dictator, the king, is on one side, and the Aalami Shura members on the opposite side. In 2015, it was also decided by Haji Abdul Wahab that the 5 people of India, of the 13 Aalami Shura members, would be the Faisals on a weekly basis in Nizamuddin. The 5 who were decided for Nizamuddin in 2015 were Maulanas Ibrahim, Yaqub, Ahmad Lat, Zuhair and Saad. This letter with the decision of the International Shura for Nizamuddin in India can also be found on the internet. But like usual, because of the love of being the only Amir and wanting to be a dictator, and because of love of name and fame, Maulana Saad rejected this decision of Haji Abdul Wahab for Banglawali Masjid, because Maulana Saad doesn't want anyone else to be with him. So he rejected both the Aalami Shura and also the new Shura Faisals for Nizamuddin and India. Maulana Saad has nothing to lose if he accepts the Shura, but he wants to run the Tabligh on his own. For 20 years, our elders were patient with Maulana Saad's mistakes, and we're hoping that inshallah, Maulana Saad will change his ways. But since things were getting worse and worse, and there was pressure from all sides against the Tabligh effort because of Maulana Saad, the elders decided that without accepting the Shura it's not possible to work with Maulana Saad. Also, there's a major concern about where all the money is going, which is donated to Bangla Wali Masjid for Tabligh from foreign countries as well as from local. Maulana Saad has taken everything into his own hands with respect to the financial aspect of Bangla Wali Masjid, and no one knows where the money is being used or abused. Along with other things, until Maulana Saad is not ready to hand over the running of the Bangla Wali Masjid to the Shura, including the finance aspect of it, the Aalami Shura should not consider joining up with Maulana Saad. When the demand is there to be under Mashwara, it also means handing over the keys and all paperwork of Bangla Wali Masjid to the Shura of India. Maulana Saad should never be allowed to threaten the Shura like he did in Rawalpindi. More than one Tablighi Markaz has been embroiled in financial scandals because of our bad governance structure, because of trusting one person. Number 2, same method, Nahj. Hadith number 1333 of Sahih Muslim talks about Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam not changing the Kaaba the way that it should have been because of how the change would be perceived negatively by his tribe. Scholars have mentioned many reasons why the change was not done. That's why we make tawaf outside the Hatim and not inside of it, because some part of that area is a part of the Kaaba. A good leader has to keep so many angles and points in mind before changing anything of an organization. Tabligh is a multinational, multifaceted organization, so it demands even more caution about any change. The change should have been made of the Kaaba, and the left out part should have been added, but it wasn't because the harm was greater because of many reasons. The harm of changing it was greater than the benefit of changing it, so it wasn't changed by Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. We all have different levels of intellect and understanding. If everyone wants to run the Tabligh effort based on their understanding, there will be chaos and disunity. Any decision made in Tabligh impacts the workers in every country of the world. In one UK masjid, there are people from 28 countries who are involved in the effort of Tabligh. If the method is the same, there is safety for us and also the effort of Tabligh. Maulana Saad frequently keeps on adding new things to the effort of Tabligh based on his weak and incorrect understanding of Tabligh without making mashwara with the International Shura. In 1999, once again, in 1999, Maulana Saad signed a letter in which it is clearly mentioned that no new things will be added to Tabligh from any of the 3 countries unless it is discussed and agreed upon by the Aalami Shura members of the 3 countries. Every so often, he comes up with something new, and before discussing it with the Shura, he goes and announces it publicly in his speeches. This rash behavior started causing disunity around the world, because, for example, when Jamaats from India would go to any country, the Indian Jamaats were doing some things in a certain way, and workers from other countries would disagree because it wasn't decided by the International Shura, and it wasn't encouraged from Rawalpindi, Pakistan, or Kakrel, Bangladesh. Once Hafiz Fakhruddin said to Maulana Yusuf and Maulana Inamul Hassan that Maulana Ilyas started the 6 points, which are very good. Let's add a few more points to the 6 points. Maulana Yusuf stayed quiet. Maulana Inam said, Hafiz Sahib, hum lakir ke faqir hai, that we will firmly stick to whatever has been decided by those before us. There is no need to change the 6 points. Maulana Ilyas compiled the 6 points after talking to more than 30 ulama. None of the previous elders of Tabligh started new things just by coming up with the idea. They put it to mashwara. As the work progresses, there might be a need to reconsider certain things, but the correct way is to bring it to mashwara and discuss it and then come up with a decision, even if it takes long to decide. What's the rush in deciding things without mashwara? The correct procedure has to be taken to add new things to Tabligh. Otherwise, there will be disunity and so much confusion. But Maulana Saad doesn't like to make mashwara with others, and he behaves like a dictator. A new thing comes to his mind after reading a book or two, and without making mashwara, without talking to the ulama of Tabligh or other ulama, He constantly announces it publicly and catches everyone by surprise. This unprofessional action has caused so many arguments in masjids, towns, cities and countries. Maulana Saad has spent very little time out in Tabligh. It would be very surprising if he has done gasht, jawla, even once in any masjid of Nizamuddin. Alhamdulillah, when our elders go back to their hometowns from the Marakiz, they do local gasht even till today. If every new shura starts adding and subtracting things from Tabligh, then it will change the essence of this illustrious work, which has benefited millions of people around the world. Hence, we should stick with the same tried and tested formula, the same Nahj, which has benefited millions of people in every single country of the world. If there is a need to make a change in Tabligh, bring it to mashwara, and do not act like a dictator and do not make decisions based on misunderstandings. We respect Maulana Saad because of the illustrious family he is from. But Maulana Saad shouldn't be under the false impression that just because he is from the family of Maulana Ilyas, that we will obey him and implement whatever new random thing he comes up with on his own without any mashwara. He is not the Ameer of Tabligh because no shura has made him the lone one leader of Tabligh. Till now, he has very less practical experience to be making major changes to Tabligh on his own. All he does is deliver lectures only, and he does not even do one of the 5 amals. Even a 15-year-old can memorize lectures and regurgitate and repeat them. Maulana Saad should be spending at least 40 days every year in Jamaat to make up for all the years and decades that he did not go in Jamaat even once. So that was the second action of Maulana Saad which has caused the Tablighi split. Number 3, criticizing others. In our work of Tabligh, there should be no tanqees, fault finding of other groups or individuals. No tanqeed, no criticizing, no tardeed, no rejecting others, no taqabul, no comparing with other groups, and no tahqeer, no belittling others. Unfortunately, Maulana Saad started doing all these things and much more. Just because a lot of people attend ijtimas, it does not mean that we should be full of pride and fall into the sin of takabbur. What percentage of the ummah is actively involved in Tabligh? Maybe only 1 or 2% of Muslims? We don't need to look any further than at our own masjids during Eid Salat. What percentages of people in our masjid are involved with the Tabligh work? That percentage is very less. We don't have to look further than the town of Nizamuddin, where the Tabligh effort has been going on for a century. Is there even one street in the town of Nizamuddin which we can say with complete confidence that every single person in the street, for example, performs salat 5 times every day, or that every male person on the street is doing the 5 amal of Tabligh? Can we even say this? But unfortunately, Maulana Saad started to criticize, reject, compare and belittle prophets, sahaba, muftis, ulama, qaris, imams, darulooms, tasawwuf, khanqahs, old workers and other organizations, thinking that he doesn't need their backing because of the huge numbers in ijtimas. It seemed as if no one would be saved from his anger and wrath. His actions have nothing to do with Tabligh and have brought great harm and dishonor to Tabligh. Even till today, Maulana Saad still uses his speeches to dishonor others. He should be banned from delivering lectures. The large number of people at ijtimas should not incite us to hate other groups. We are all rafiqs, friends of each other, and not fariqs, not opposition groups of each other. His actions have made it very difficult for us to do Tabligh work in our localities. Maulana Saad's wrong speeches don't affect him because he doesn't do local work. Maulana Saad's supporters don't like it when others rightfully criticize Maulana Saad, and some even become violent. But they should realize that Maulana Saad has developed a very bad, wrong habit of publicly, incorrectly criticizing so many professions and groups. If you are going to criticize so many, then you better be prepared to be criticized as well. Number 4, fatwas against Maulana Saad. In one book, more than 70 mistakes of Maulana Saad have been compiled and translated in multiple languages by ulama. All the important workers of Tabligh delivered lengthy lectures, but the ulama did not criticize their lectures. Maulana Umar Palanpuri would deliver lectures for hours and there were no books written about his mistakes. Even the current day ulama of Tabligh who are in the Aalami Shura, there is no criticism or mistakes about their lectures. But Maulana Saad has been criticized to such an extent that a scholar of South Africa wrote a book in English titled The Kufr Ideology of Maulwi Saad. Before, there was no trend of writing books against Tabligh speakers or Tabligh. But since the last few years, books upon books have been written about the mistakes of Maulana Saad and against the effort which we have spent so many years and time and money behind. It is difficult to call Maulana, in scare quotes or air quotes, it is difficult to call Maulana Saad a Maulana because in his student days, he would be absent for many days. Since his sister lives in Saudi Arabia, he would visit Saudi Arabia for Ramadan and then he would come back more than 2 months late and would come back after Eid al-Adha for many years. He would be absent for many days. It's very hard to call Maulana Saad a full alim. If he was in a professionally run institute, he would have been expelled from the institute for missing so many days. Also, even as a teacher, he would come back late from Saudi Arabia and would miss teaching for many months. Even till today, he is not punctual as a teacher. If he was a teacher in a professionally run institute, he would have been fired a long time ago for not fulfilling the rights of his students. They say that Neem Mullah Khatra Iman, that a half and an incomplete scholar is a danger to others' Iman. As we see, because of his lack of knowledge and not fully completing the alim course, Maulana Saad makes many mistakes. He is not a mufti, but considers himself a mufti. Our work of Tabligh is an effort in which we encourage people towards Fazail, and then for Masail, we encourage people to contact their local muftis and ulama. So we encourage people towards Fazail, and then for Masail, we encourage people to contact their local muftis and ulama. We do not issue fatwas in our Tablighi lectures, in capital letters. I repeat, we do not issue fatwas in our Tablighi lectures. But Maulana Saad thinks he is a mufti and started giving wrong fatwas in his lectures. The elders and speakers of Tabligh refrain from talking about Masail in their lectures, but Maulana Saad broke this very important rule of Tabligh. For example, he issued a fatwa in multiple lectures that it is haram to use mobile phones. He is not a mufti, and he is also an incomplete alim, and that is his opinion about mobile phones. But unfortunately, he did not stop there. He exaggerated that opinion and he crossed all boundaries by saying that whoever doesn't agree with this opinion of his, then that mufti is a bad mufti. Maulana Saad said that it is a bid'ah to recite Quran on mobile phones, which means that he doesn't correctly understand the bid'ah classification. He said that whoever has a mobile phone in their pocket, their salat is not accepted. He mentioned many times that such ulama who give permission to use mobile phones are ulama su, immoral ulama. La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. Because of so many mistakes of Maulana Saad, the ulama and old workers of Tabligh have lost all confidence in his decision-making abilities. Maulana Saad went out of his boundaries and did not stay in his lane, and now books are being written against him and Tabligh. In his lectures, he started to mention opinions which were not taken by Jamhur ulama, the majority ulama, and he started doing ijtihad on his own without being qualified. He started mentioning strange things which left many people very concerned. In a lecture of his, which is on YouTube, Maulana Saad says that if hidayat was in Allah's hands, then why would Allah send prophets? What did he say? He said that if hidayat was in Allah's hands, then why would Allah send prophets? In other words, Maulana Saad is saying that hidayat is not in Allah's hands, or that hidayat of a person is restricted to the effort of Tabligh only, and without the effort of Tabligh, Allah can't give hidayat. he is very, very lucky that he is from a famous family and is involved in Tabligh. Otherwise, if he was any random person saying all these wrong things, the ulama would have declared him a misguided person who is misguiding others. Point number 5. The fifth action of Maulana Saad which has caused the disunity in Tabligh Jamat. Number 5. Self-proclaimed Ameer of Tabligh Jamat. No one decided for Maulana Saad to be the lone Ameer of Tabligh. But Maulana Saad is under the false impression that he is the only current Ameer of Tabligh. The reality is that he has currently forcefully taken over Banglawali Masjid. In 1993, Maulana In'amul Hasan made a shura of 10 people. And when he was asked that who will be the Faisal after he passes away, he said that choose your own Faisal. In other words, it was decided in 1993 that after he passes away, that there will not be any one single permanently fixed Amir for Tabligh. Then in 1995, Maulana In'amul Hasan passed away. This same shura met in Nizamuddin in 1995 to choose who will be the Faisal only for Nizamuddin in India, because Maulana In'amul Hasan passed away and there was no Faisal for Nizamuddin now. The purpose of this shura was not to meet to decide who will be the next Amir of Tabligh, because it was already decided by Maulana In'am that there will be no fixed Amir after his death. So the Aalami Shura chose Maulana Izharul Hasan, Maulana Zubairul Hasan and Maulana Saad to be the Faisals only for Nizamuddin in India and not for the whole world, because an Aalami Shura already existed for the whole world. In 1996, 2 more were added to the Aalami Shura for a total, in 1996, 2 more were added by the Aalami Shura for a total of 5 Faisals for Nizamuddin from the 10 Aalami Shura members. So there was 10 Aalami Shura members, and 5 of those were from India, and those 5 were chosen as Faisals for Shura for Nizamuddin India. From 1995 till 2015, whenever the Aalami Shura would meet at the 3 places, Faisals were chosen like Mufti Zainul Abidin, Miyaji Mihrab, Maulana Umar Palanpuri, Haji Abdul Wahab and others. During these 20 years, Maulana Saad was never chosen as a Faisal even once. So, from 1995 till 2015, Maulana Saad would consider himself to be a part of the Aalami Shura. Then suddenly, out of nowhere, in 2015, he rejected the new International Shura members and also the new Shura members for India, and now claims to be the only Amir of Tabligh. Maulana Saad has hijacked the effort of Tabligh, and he alone is responsible for the bloodshed which has been carried out in multiple countries by his violent followers. If he feels that he is the leader of Tabligh, then why does he not speak out against the violence which has been perpetrated by his followers and the bloodshed which happened in Banglawali Masjid of all the places in the blessed month of Ramadan in 2016, in other parts of India, and in Bangladesh in 2018. Maulana Saad has left it to his followers to be violent towards those who disagree with him. In 2015, Maulana Saad rejected the decision of the Amir, Haji Abdul Wahab, and became an Amir on his own without being decided by anyone. So, why should we take him as our Amir when no one made him the Amir of Tabligh? Point number 6. Violent gangster behavior of his followers in Nizamuddin Banglawali Masjid in Ramadan 2016. On multiple occasions in Banglawali Masjid Nizamuddin, violence has occurred and blood has been shed by supporters of Maulana Saad. In all of these occasions, unfortunately, Maulana Saad remained quiet and did not utter a single word against those who were being violent. In the blessed month of Ramadan 2016, such violence occurred that the news of it spread around the world. We were exposed to such pictures with bloodied people that we were left in a shock that how can something like this happen at Banglawali Masjid? On the 13th of Ramadan 2016, followers of Maulana Saad spread false information that Maulana Saad has been attacked. So by Dhuhr of the next day, 400 Mewati people and others came from nearby places to the masjid to defend Maulana Saad, and they were kept on the 4th floor, and iftari was provided for them there as well. Between Asr and Maghrib, Maulana Saad had gathered people in his room to plan what to do on that evening. So the gangster supporters of Maulana Saad started beating up a few people in the masjid who would usually enter the room of Maulana Zuhair, who is the son of Maulana Zubair. Supporters of Maulana, in scare quotes, Saad had locked the gates of the masjid so that no one can enter or exit. The violent supporters started attacking those who disagreed with Maulana Saad, and they even attacked the three sons of Maulana Zubair. But Alhamdulillah, the three sons of Maulana Zubair escaped to their house. The gangsters grabbed a few youngsters who were standing by the main gate and pulled them inside and beat them up really badly and made them bleed, and they ended up in the hospital. Pictures of two innocent youngsters who were badly beaten up by the jungly followers of Maulana Saad can be found on the internet. Carrying sticks and dangerous weapons with them, they also went to target Professor Dr. Sanaullah Sahib, who started the Tabligh work in France. Alhamdulillah, at that time, Professor Sanaullah was not in his room, otherwise he might have been killed by this violent mob in Ramadan in Banglawali Masjid. Professor Sanaullah also saw with his own eyes all the violence which took place when the supporters of Maulana Saad attacked innocent people. These violent people were walking around in the masjid with sticks and other dangerous weapons in their hands and shouting Allahu Akbar and making a lot of noise with the masjid doors locked. The gangsters then went to the rooms of Maulana Ahmad Lat and Maulana Yunus Palanpuri and broke things in the rooms and stole things from there. They were sending a warning to them that don't come back. The next day, because of death threats against them, Maulana Ahmad Lat, Professor Sanaullah and others left Banglawali Masjid and have not returned to the masjid where they have spent more than 50 years of their life. It is interesting to note that after Isha Salat, Maulana Saad announced that those who were being violent, he has nothing to do with them, and he took a qasam, he took an oath. But he himself, after Asr Salat, was planning and plotting with people in his room on what to do that night. Brother Gulzar, who currently goes to the Fazail Aalami Shura Markaz in New Delhi, was also present in that room. When Brother Gulzar saw that Maulana Saad is taking a qasam and an oath after Isha Salat, trying to absolve himself, when in reality Maulana Saad knew everything which was going on and the planning and plotting which happened after Asr in Maulana Saad's room, Brother Gulzar realized that the person is lying, and he also left Banglawali Masjid, and now he does not go there anymore because he realized that Maulana Saad does not tell the truth. That same night, the police entered the masjid and took statements from everyone. The news of this violent night spread around the world, and the blame of the violence lies solely with Maulana Saad and his violent supporters. After Ramadan, on the 27th of July 2016, Maulana Ibrahim Dewla returned from his village to Nizamuddin. A few days after that, another violent incident happened by the supporters of Maulana Saad. About 100 people came to meet the elders. They also wanted to meet Maulana Zuhair, but the violent gangsters who are supporters of Maulana Saad threatened those visitors and warned them that they are not allowed to meet Maulana Zuhair. When they did go to meet and to visit Maulana Zuhair, the violent people started beating up these innocent visitors. Then supporters of Maulana Saad came and lied to Maulana Ibrahim Dewla that all the commotion was because some thieves came to steal things, so they were beaten up. Then a few of the people who were beaten up came and mentioned the truth to Maulana Ibrahim, who then realized that the masjid has been taken up and has been taken over by gangsters and violent people. A few days later, after making istikhara, Maulana Ibrahim Dewla also decided to leave Banglawali Masjid. The same masjid which he was attached to for more than 50 years, Maulana Ibrahim was forced to leave because it became a violent place, and the king, the dictator, the Badshah, Maulana Saad, was refusing to say anything to his vicious supporters. Upon his return to his village, Maulana Ibrahim Saad wrote a detailed letter explaining the many reasons why he left Banglawali Masjid. Even till today, Maulana Saad warns and threatens people that if you come to my room and start disagreeing with me and bring up this issue of disunity, You might not be able to leave this room and you might get hurt. Maulana Saad threatened all workers of Arabic countries with similar words when they came to Banglawali Masjid to talk to Maulana Saad. The story of Maulana Saad supporters threatening and calling the police and accusing the Arabic old workers of being terrorists is another long story. Back in 1995, after the death of Maulana In'am, when the Aalami Shura met in Nizamuddin to decide who will be in the Shura of Nizamuddin in India, Maulana Saad supporters filled up all the floors of Banglawali Masjid, and also they filled up the nearby masjids. This was a warning and a threat to the Aalami Shura members that you better choose Maulana Saad, otherwise there will be violence in Nizamuddin. Hence, Maulana Saad was chosen with others even though he was incompetent to be in the Shura for India in 1995. His supporters around the world have repeatedly threatened to be violent, and if they don't get their way, they have become violent. One by one, Maulana Saad and his supporters have cleared out and emptied Banglawali Masjid of all those people who disagree with Maulana Saad. The Badshah, Maulana Saad, doesn't want anyone else to be with him on his throne of Banglawali Masjid. Thirst for money, power, and fame are a dangerous mix. He and his supporters only want people around him who agree with him. Till today, along with other issues, Maulana Saad also has not provided any assurances for the safety of the elders, and that is why elders like Maulana Ahmad Lak, Maulana Ibrahim, Professor Sanaullah, and other old workers of Tabligh have not returned to Banglawali Masjid. The masjid has been taken over by violent supporters of Maulana Saad, who also beat up and bloodied people in Mumbai. Supporters of Maulana Saad are the ones who also cause the violence in Bangladesh. Till today, people are in hospital or badly injured because of the violence of the followers of Maulana Saad. Spiritually, they have dirtied Banglawali Masjid, and physically as well, they have dirtied the masjid. You will most likely not come across a Tablighi Jamat place which is as dirty and as smelly as Banglawali Masjid, unfortunately. It is probably the dirtiest place in the world for use of Tabligh Jamat members. The wudu areas are usually smelly and dirty. The bath shower areas are usually extremely dirty and smelly. The bathrooms are usually smelly and dirty. Maulana Saad can't take care of Banglawali Masjid and he wants to be the Ameer of the world? Islam doesn't teach us to keep our masjids filthy and dirty and smelly. Next point, point number 7. Stopped Tabaqaati effort. Different methods are adopted to bring people closer to the Tabligh effort. One method is that professions are gathered separately through the Tabaqaati effort method, and then the same people are sent in Jamaats through general Jamaats. So, teachers, students, railway workers, doctors, IT professionals, and other professions are focused on, and then they have their gatherings in their localities. Then the same people are sent in general Jamaats. This type of effort had been going on for decades, and many people started going in Jamaat through this method. Maulana Saad, who has no experience of working in any local masjid, totally banned the Tabaqaati effort. This irrational decision greatly harmed the Tabligh effort all around the world. For example, more than 30 doctors would gather every month in Chicago, USA. Since the Tabaqaati effort was stopped, this monthly gathering had to be stopped. Thousands of students would gather all around the world for regular ijtimas, but this type of effort was stopped. The same is the case with all other professions. The benefits of this type of focused effort were much more than a few harms. The correct method would have been to work on removing any deficiencies. To totally stop this type of effort was wrong. We don't throw the baby out with the bathwater, as they say in English. Maulana Saad has a very bad habit of deciding things based on his faulty lone interpretation of Sirah. Since the Shura leadership has started and they are not with the Shakhsi individual leader, it is only now that the Tabaqaati effort has restarted and the benefits are tremendous. A few examples. At one masjid in Mysore, India, more than 50 students of the local college are gathered for a weekly program, And then some of those same students also go out in Jamaat. Recently in Bangalore Markaz, an ijtima was held for people who catch snakes, and hundreds of them attended. It's hard to obey someone who has no experience working in any local masjid and who hasn't gone in Jamaat and who only delivers lectures and does no field work. We still don't understand why he was chosen in 1993 or in 1995. He had not gone in Jamaat. He wasn't doing any of the 5 amals. He was lacking in knowledge and was young in age, was not competent to be in any shura. But even then, was he only chosen because of the family he is from without any other qualification? He should never have been chosen in 1993 and 1995. Today, we see how much harm he has been to the Tabligh effort because of our decisions being based on qawmiyat and ta'assub? Question mark. We have learned the hard way, and inshallah, this type of decision will never happen again. One wrong decision by Maulana Saad has caused so much harm to Tabligh because of Tabaqaat effort being stopped by him. His decisions don't impact him because he doesn't do any local Tabligh effort. We, those who are doing daily amal in our masjids, are the ones who have to go through difficulties because of his rash decisions. So that was point number 7, that he stopped Tabaqaat effort without any decision by anyone else, without any mashwara with others. Number 8, Fazail Amal versus Muntakhab Hadith. The Fazail Amal book is one of the most read books in the world today. It is being read in Jamaats for nearly 70 years. For many years, through different ways, Maulana Saad has been trying his best to remove Fazail Amal from Tabligh and replace it with the book Muntakhab Hadith, which is authored by his grandfather. Compilation of a hadith for the book Muntakhab Hadith was initiated by Maulana Yusuf, rahmatullahi alayh. Other scholars of his time were also given the responsibility to compile hadiths for the book. So, in the time of Maulana Yusuf, the book was authored by multiple people. But Maulana Yusuf never encouraged the ta'aleem of Muntakhab Hadith in Jamaat or in any markaz. Then during the 32 years of Maulana In'am, there was no encouragement of Muntakhab Hadith. But the king, Maulana Saad, without it being finalized by the Aalami Shura, started encouraging people in his speeches to read the book in Jamaat. Currently, his supporters read Muntakhab Hadith one day and Fazail Amal the next day. The reality about Muntakhab Hadith is that there were only about 40 pages compiled by Maulana Yusuf, and he did not publish the booklet like he published Hayatul Sahaba. Majority of the hadith in the Muntakhab Hadith book were compiled recently by 6 ulama of Karachi, Pakistan, among others, who were working on the Urdu translation. So in reality, it is wrong to attribute the Muntakhab Hadith book to only Maulana Yusuf. Then when it came to printing the book in Urdu, the question arose that whose name should be written as the author and translator of the book. The correct answer should have been that the book be attributed to the group of ulama who compiled the hadith and then translated it to Urdu. But Maulana Saad became extremely angry and annoyed, as unfortunately is his habit, and demanded that only his name be written on the cover of the book as a translator, and nothing should be mentioned about all those who compiled most of the hadith of the book and then translated it to Urdu. Also, when the Arabic version, most of the hadith were compiled by the same group of ulama. When the Arabic version of the book was printed, once again, Maulana Saad had his name prominently mentioned. As can be seen from this unethical behavior, Maulana Saad seems to be hungry for name and fame and has perpetrated a colossal academic dishonesty. After having the book published in multiple languages without a decision of the Aalami Shura, Maulana Saad started encouraging it in his speeches, which once again caused a lot of disunity around the world. No decision has been made by mashwara of reading any book other than Fazail Amal. Maulana Saad also says that since Fazail Amal has weak hadith, it should be replaced with Muntakhab Hadith. But even the Muntakhab Hadith has weak hadith. When ulama of Egypt wrote letters to Maulana In'am stating that the Hayatul Sahaba book has fabricated, rejected, and weak hadith and stories, then they should all be removed? Maulana Zakaria, rahmatullahi alayhi, the author of Fazail Amal, replies that the author, Maulana Yusuf, has died, and we don't have any authority to make any changes to the book. Maulana Saad uses those same fabricated and weak narrations from Hayat al-Sahaba to make up his own rules and regulations for Tabligh. Not only that, but Maulana Saad uses fabricated, rejected, and weak narrations and stories in his speeches as well. This is another reason Maulana Saad should be stopped from delivering lectures. So, Maulana Saad has no right to remove, like a dictator, the Fazail Amal book, which has benefited millions of people around the world. He has no right to remove it on his own without it being finalized by Mashwara first. As a suggestion, and it's only a suggestion, but maybe the same group of scholars who compiled and translated the Muntakhab Hadith book or other ulama should be requested to write a book on the pattern of Fazail Amal and use only authentic narrations so that the fitna and confusion caused by Maulana Saad can be put to an end. In this manner, the objections will be resolved by authoring a totally different third authentic book to use in collective ta'aleems. In this matter, once again, we can learn from the Nahj Nabuwwat of Prophet Muhammad ﷺ when he did not restructure the Kaaba because changing it would have been more detrimental. So that was point number 8. Point number 9. Adding new things without Aalami Shura decision. Without things being decided in Mashwara or even going against Mashwara, Maulana Saad, who acts like a dictator, started doing and adding new things on his own. We share with you only 3 examples out of more than 10. Number 1, he has publicly started doing bay'ah sessions after Maghrib in his room through a speaker system, which also causes disturbance in the Ijtima' Amal. It was decided many years ago in Mashwara. It was decided in Mashwara that there would be no public taking of bay'ah in Nizamuddin. But to increase his followers, maybe, Maulana Saad is doing bay'ah sessions whenever he gets a chance with men as well as women in Nizamuddin and in Ijtima'as without it being decided first in Mashwara. Number 2, he says it is khilaf sunnat and against sunnat to give da'wah to Muslims outside the masjid. So he is against giving advices in people's houses, on the streets or anywhere else, and says that they should be brought to the masjid and given advice only in the masjid. Once again, this new decision is based on his own limited personal understanding of seerah. So, because of this faulty understanding, he came up with a new method called da'wah, ta'aleem and istiqbal. In this new method, people go out and tell people to come to the masjid with them, and they don't give advice outside the masjid. Because of pushing this new tartib through without any decision by the Aalami Shura, it is causing a lot of disunity. The harm of this new tartib is that previously, in the 2.5-hour tartib, we would go and sit in people's houses or other places and give advice for 30 minutes, 45 minutes, or longer or shorter, based on circumstances, and full da'wah would be given, and the complete effort and benefits of tabligh would be explained. Now, because of this da'wah ta'aleem istiqbal method, also known as aka Ta'mir Masjid method, the regular gush is being negatively impacted, as well as giving da'wah at people's houses and other places has stopped, all because of the wrong understanding of Maulana Saad about it not being sunnah to give out advice outside the masjid. If it is against the sunnah to give outside the masjid, then why is Maulana Saad organizing public ijtimas every few months, which he was totally against of doing? Before, he was against having large ijtimas. Now he's organizing ijtimas so frequently. Did Prophet Muhammad organize ijtimas for Muslims? Why have ijtimas? Why have ijtimas if it's against the sunnah to give advice outside the masjid? Can Islamic advice be given to Muslims only in the masjid and nowhere else? There is no prohibition of giving advice to Muslims outside the masjid. Those who know the surah know how wrong Maulana Saad is in this view of his. What next? Will Maulana Saad stop people from going in gusht? In largely populated Muslim areas where people can be found outside the masjid, this method of calling people to come to the masjid and giving da'wat in the masjid is beneficial. But if it was decided through mashwara, and if people were convinced, and if there was no effort to start giving da'wat outside the masjid by calling it against the sunnah, then it would have proved to be much more beneficial for the ummah, as we can see in some masjids where a lot of Muslims congregate around the masjid. Both giving advice in the masjid by inviting people to come to the masjid, and giving advice at homes and other places where usually people refuse to come to the masjid should have been promoted. There was no need to remove one method to adopt the second one, which was done without any decision of the Aalami Shura. The important question is, which masjid of Nizamuddin did Maulana Saad try this before publicly encouraging it? Did he go to any local masjid in the Nizamuddin town and try to do his Dawah Talim Istiqbal method even once? Most likely he didn't, because as the person who has been with Maulana Saad for many years, that person said that Maulana Saad has not gone in Jamaat for even one day. Has Maulana Saad even done Gasht and Jawla even once? Has he done Ta'aruf Ibat even once? Has he done Ta'aleem even once? Has he done I'lan even once? So, without any trial, without any practice, without doing it himself, he pushed this new thing through without it being decided by the Aalami Shura. This is the harm of behaving like a dictator. Methods which could prove to be beneficial in some places of the world are not widely accepted because of not doing it through mashwara. Third example, he came up with new things for the daily house ta'aleem, and it was not finalized by the Aalami Shura. Even if something is correct or beneficial, but if it is not finalized by the Aalami Shura, it will cause great confusion, chaos, disunity, and arguments everywhere. Intishar Zahni. Maulana Saad can't just sit in Nizamuddin and come up with new things on his own and start advising about them without having it finalized by mashwara. That's not how regular organizations work. Such things happen in dictatorships. One of those 5 amals of the house ta'aleem, which Maulana, quote, unquote, Saad decided without it being finalized in mashwara, is correction of Quran recitation. Now, reciting the Quran with tajweed is important, but once again, it had to be finalized in mashwara because it is something new for the house ta'aleem. One major complaint about the correction of recitation of Quran, this amal, is that mothers and females found it very hard, and it became a matter of haya and shame to explain to their male children when the women were in their monthly periods and in their hayd, why they were not reciting the Quran that day with everyone else. We males don't understand this issue of shame in this situation, so we shouldn't be deciding if it's a matter of haya or not. The women are saying that it's very difficult for them to explain to their children. So this correction of recitation of Quran in daily house ta'aleem was added by Maulana Saad without any decision by the Aalami Shura. Even though there is this valid concern, no solution has been provided by him or his followers. Even Prophet Muhammad changed his opinion when Hubab ibn Munzir radiallahu anhu gave him a suggestion in the Battle of Badr. Whilst we are talking about correction of recitation of the Quran for women, and we're talking about tajweed, we would like to mention that since Maulana Saad makes many tajweed mistakes, he should go and study tajweed from a qari. Once the qari gives permission, only then should Maulana Saad lead the salat. Till Maulana Saad's tajweed is not correct, he should not be allowed to lead salat in Banglawali Masjid or anywhere else. We were looking at the curriculum of the Banglawali Masjid Darul Uloom, which is run by Maulana Saad, and surprisingly we did not see even one tajweed kitab being taught to the students. Other than one class, the rest of the students are taught by one teacher at the same time. Other than one class, all the other students are taught tajweed by one teacher at the same time. Usually, 3 tajweed books are studied in a Darul Uloom. Maulana Saad's Darul Uloom is probably the only Darul Uloom in the world where students become Maulanas without studying even one tajweed book. Maybe this is another ijtihad and brilliant idea of Maulana Saad of not teaching even one tajweed book to the students at Banglawali Masjid. Since Maulana Saad has studied at the same Darul Uloom, did Maulana Saad study even one tajweed book in his student days? Point number 10, being revengeful. Those who have been around Maulana Saad since 1995 have seen that when people disagree with Maulana Saad and they don't promote his teachings, which he starts without mashwara, then Maulana Saad gets revenge by ignoring them and sidelining them. If he realizes that through the hidayat and other talks, you are not advising people with his new teachings and you are sticking to what has been said at Nizamuddin for decades, he will then slowly not decide any more talks for you. Maulana Saad was making final decisions because he forcefully took over the masjid by going against the decision of the Ameer Haj Abdul Wahab Sahib in 2015. Then, even though you have been in Nizamuddin for decades and for much longer than him, he will make sure that your name is not decided to be sent to other places for ijtimas, for example. Because of being vengeful, he will get you back for not agreeing with him. A good leader is supposed to appreciate those people who disagree with your opinions. It shouldn't be a matter of my way or the highway. We respect Maulana Saad not because of his life accomplishments. We respect Maulana Saad because he is the great-grandson of Maulana Ilyas. But it doesn't mean that we have to agree with so many of his wrong, hasty decisions and mistakes. It is extremely difficult to stay with a vengeful person. In a democratic organization, he would have been removed a long time ago because of his many mistakes and anger and nazuk tabiyat and stubbornness and causing so much disunity. Even though there should be, but since there is no method to remove someone like Maulana Saad, for the safety of the effort, elders of Tabligh from the time of Maulana Yusuf have decided to stay far from Maulana Saad till he rectifies the above major concerns. So, even though there should be, but since there is no method to remove someone like Maulana Saad, for the safety of the effort and for the safety of the religion of Islam, elders of Tabligh from the time of Maulana Yusuf have decided to stay far from Maulana Saad till he rectifies the above major concerns. Maulana Saad's 10 above actions are the primary reason for the current disunity in Tabligh Jamat. We make sincere dua that may Maulana Saad change his objectionable ways. Aameen. In conclusion, we have tried our best to remain academic, and we have not mentioned the disturbing stories which we have heard about Maulana Saad's private life. We leave that to the judgment of Allah. We agree with the current stance of Darul Uloom Deoband, the same Darul Uloom which has been asked more than 10,000 times over the past 20 years about Maulana Saad's statements. So we agree with the current stance of Darul Uloom Deoband about not accepting the retraction, the ruju'nama of Maulana Saad. What kind of retraction is it that after the retraction, Maulana Saad is saying objectionable things again only after a few days? We also agree with the decisions which the Aalami Shura has taken with respect to Maulana Saad. If we are not ready to let someone drive a low-cost, an inexpensive car because the driver is not knowledgeable and doesn't have experience, why should we then obey Maulana Saad and let him be the only Amir of Tabligh for the whole world without any Shura? Considering that he rejects the Aalami Shura and he has very little experience of going out in Jamaat and a lack of knowledge as can be understood from the more than 70 mistakes of his, we do not consider him to be our Amir. We do not consider him to be our Amir. The amount of time and money spent for the sake of Allah in the past century through the effort of Tabligh is commendable, mashallah. So, why should so many people's sacrifices go to waste? And why should this beneficial effort be left for destruction by letting one sole person lead who has been criticized so much by so many people? We are happy that all these matters came in front of the world when Haji Abdul Wahab and other elders were alive. Otherwise, it would have been impossible for us to deal with this big fitna. if you had passed away and these issues had not come up. We know that you tried your best to advise Maulana Saad for 20 years through different ways, but he was too stubborn, he was too ziddi. We feel really sorry that our elders were forced to leave Nizamuddin in 2016. We also know that even though you love the masjid where you spent more than 50 years, you sacrifice your stay at Nizamuddin for the protection of Islam and the protection of the work of Tabligh, which we all love so much. You will forever be in our du'as for being patient for more than 20 years with Maulana Saad. We are appreciative of your sacrifices for more than 50 years. We applaud your decision. We applaud your decision, and may Allah grant you all Jannatul Firdaus. Aameen. So in conclusion, for the final time, the 10 actions of Maulana Saad which have caused disunity in the Tabligh Jamat effort. Number 1, not believing in Shura, going against Shura. Number 2, coming up with his own method and going against the Nahj, going against the previous methods. Number 3, criticizing others. Number 4, issuing fatwas on his own and so many fatwas against his wrong fatwas. Number 5, self-proclaimed Ameer. Number 6, violence by his followers. Number 7, stopping Tabaqaat effort. Number 8, trying to remove Fazail Amal and the immoral behavior with respect to the way that he decided things for Muntakhab hadith. Number 9, adding new things without mashura or against mashura. And number 10, being revengeful. So this discussion has been compiled in April of 2019 by muftis and ulama who went out for 1 year in Tabligh Jamat, alhamdulillah. If you have any comments or suggestions about this discussion, you may email your comments to tablighjamatshura@gmail.com. Tabligh Jamat Shura, that is spelled Tabligh, Tabligh with an H there, Jamat Shura, JAMATSHURA @gmail.com. Once again, TABLIGH JAMATSHURA @gmail.com. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us all the tawfiq to utilize our time, our blessed bounties and blessings, and the things which Allah has given us. May we use all these things for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, for the propagation and elevation of the beautiful teachings of Islam. Ameen. Wa akhiru da'wana and alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen.